In 1978, China was one of the poorest nations on Earth. 88% of its population lived in poverty. GDP was smaller than Italy's. Today, it's the world's second largest economy. This is not an accident. This is doctrine executed over 45 years. Western business leaders missed it. Let's establish the baseline. 1978, 2 years after Mao's death, China's per capita income was $200 per year. Nearly half of all households lived in poverty by any measure. No highways, no modern ports, technologically decades behind the West. And then something changed. It was a deliberate, multi-generational strategy that most Western analysts do not understand to this day. Deng Xiaoping's directive was clear: pragmatism over ideology. The doctrine became study the West, exceed the West. Not copy, exceed. This meant sending students to MIT, Harvard, and Stanford to understand how America built dominance, to study Western industrial policy, finance systems, logistics, absorb, adapt, then surpass. How'd they do it? 3 mechanisms. Learn fast. Between 1978 and 2000, China sent over 300,000 students to study in the West. Strategic education, engineering, economics, computer science. They returned with knowledge. China required foreign companies to share technology in exchange for market access. Tesla wants to sell cars in China? Build a factory there. Partner with a local firm. Share battery technology. This isn't espionage in the shadows. It's contractual knowledge transfer at scale. High-speed rail. In 2007, China had 0 kilometers of high-speed rail. They invited Siemens, Kawasaki, Bombardier to bid on contracts with one condition: transfer the technology. Teach us how to build these trains. By 2010, Chinese engineers were reverse engineering and improving designs. By 2017, they had developed the Fuxing train, entirely domestic, faster than the German and Japanese models that they studied. 2024, China operates 48,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. That's more than the rest of the world combined. They didn't just learn, they exceeded. China failed constantly. Ghost cities, massive overcapacity in steel and solar, regional corruption, failed state-owned enterprises. And the difference? They failed quickly and pivoted. Special economic zones were experiments. Some worked, Shenzhen exploded. Some didn't, and they shut them down. Western democracies debate policy for years. China tested, failed, and iterated within months. Failed quick, experimentally. Industrial policy. The West abandoned it in the 1980s, believing free markets would allocate resources efficiently. China went the other direction. Made in China 2025 identifies strategic industries, semiconductors, EVs, renewable energy, aerospace, biotech. Then they deployed subsidies, tax breaks, state-backed loans, hundreds of billions of dollars. According to Bloomberg Economics, China achieved global leadership in 5 of 13 critical technologies: high-speed rail, graphene, drones, solar panels, and electric vehicles. And they're closing the gap in 7 others. Solar power. In the early 2000s, the US and Europe led solar technology. Then China invested over $130 billion, sustained over 2 decades. They captured 80% of polysilicon, wafer, cell, and module production. When Western companies like Solyndra went bankrupt, Chinese manufacturers scaled. Today, China produces 80% of the world's solar panels. President Xi set a target: 1,200 gigawatts of solar and wind by 2030. They hit it in 2024, 6 years early. That's policy executed with precision. Electric vehicles. In 2024, BYD overtook Tesla as the world's largest EV manufacturer. But how? Vertical integration at scale Tesla can't match. BYD owns lithium mines, battery factories, vehicle production. They control the entire supply chain. But here's the irony. Tesla built its Shanghai Gigafactory to access the Chinese market. In doing so, they trained Chinese suppliers and engineers. That's a classic knowledge transfer. Now BYD exports to 70 plus countries. Learn fast, fail quick, and dominate slow. The deepest contrast is the time horizon. Western CEOs optimize for quarterly earnings. The average tenure is 5 years. Why build for 2050 when you'll be retired in 2030? China operates on 5-year plans, 14 of them since 1953. Leaders think in decades. Deng Xiaoping said, "Cross the river by feeling the stones." Incremental, patient, and compounding. This is dominate slow, not explosive quarterly growth. Sustained generational momentum. The math of patient compounding is brutal. From 1978 to 2010, China averaged over 10% GDP growth annually. As growth slowed to 5 to 7%, it was compounding on an $18 trillion base. $200 billion in 1978, $18 trillion in 2024. That's a 90x increase. More than 800 million people lifted from extreme poverty. The largest reduction in global inequality in modern history through compounding. Learn, fail, iterate, compound. Most developed nations hit the middle income trap. Wages rise. They can't compete on cost. They lack the innovation to compete on quality, and they stagnate. China avoided it by transitioning before wages made them uncompetitive. As factory wages rose, they shifted to high-speed rail, semiconductors, AI, and quantum computing. They climbed the value chain while others got stuck. What can organizations learn? This is strategic patience. Western businesses are trapped in quarterly thinking. Activist investors demand immediate returns. R&D gets cut because it doesn't hit this quarter's numbers. Long-term bets get killed because the CEO won't be around to see them succeed. Meanwhile, China spent 15 years on high-speed rail before it became profitable. They invested in solar for 2 decades before achieving dominance. That's the doctrine. Learn fast, study best practices, and adapt aggressively. Fail quick. Experiment, pivot, iterate without ego. Dominate slow. Compound advantages over decades. Learn fast, study what works, hire from competitors, license technology. Don't reinvent wheels when you can study and improve them. Fail quick, run experiments, kill bad projects fast. Don't defend sunk costs, and iterate. Dominate slow. Think in decades, not quarters. Build compounding advantages. Sacrifice short-term profits for long-term dominance. This isn't China's playbook. Amazon ran unprofitable for years to dominate e-commerce. TSMC spent decades perfecting semiconductor manufacturing, and SpaceX iterated through dozens of rocket failures. The doctrine works if you have the patience. China's century isn't over. They're targeting leadership in AI, quantum computing, and space technology. The marathon continues. The question for your organization is, are you playing the long game? Or are you optimizing for next quarter's earnings call? This is Chapter 8 from Learn Fast, Fail Quick, Dominate Slow. The full book breaks down how nations, companies, and leaders build enduring dominance. Subscribe, follow along. There's more to come.